Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, but the beauty of each person is that my equals are gone, so you would pay the Selelana. Yeah, I am from a company called TASOL Solar Power. We've been in existence for almost 13 years. We play in the manufacturing space, and that is basically renewable energy. Now, when we talk about renewable energy, one of the speakers that was here, she mentioned that we need to look at the trend, what is happening globally. Are we actually on the right track? When we do our we are thinking more today. But what's the future? We can wonder. We are really oriented today. We talk about lights from the TP power station. We talk about lights from Kusile. But what is the future? The future could be virtual power stations, where you generate energy from your roof. You don't rely on power transmitted from Medupe and things like that. So this young lady was here. I was so impressed. She's actually trying to conscientize ourselves that we need to think out of the box. Who's better qualified to do that other than yourselves? Because Tina says, at least we've been around, we're aging, so Mashi baiting again, we've got to give you the right stuff. So I said we've been here for almost, for more than 13 years. We have evolved. Initially, we were doing renewable energy products, and which is your solar geysers, which is your lights and things like that. But we then said, okay, if you look at what is happening globally in terms of your Kyoto Protocol, the last one was your Paris Accord, in terms of renewable energy. We are saying even your house, the house that you build, must, first of all, you talk about the orientation of the house. It must be north-facing, so that you can basically, in terms of renewable energy, harvest from the sun. Well, there's a lot of renewable energy stuff. There's biomass, there's wind, there's hydro, there's things like that. So what we're here to talk about today is manufacturing. Because we are clear. Speakers that have been here, they put emphasis on manufacturing. I don't want to overemphasize that. If we are consumers of goods and services, we'll never take this country forward. We have or we must be manufacturing oriented for us to take the country forward. So I'm here to basically stress that youth of tomorrow must focus on manufacturing. If you look at the value chain, who controls the value chain? It's the manufacturer. In some instances, they have their own distributors. They have their own M&V teams and things like that. That is where we should basically focus as young people of today. I'm not going to talk about the stats in terms of the expanded definition of youth unemployment. I'm not going to talk percentages. What I'm here, Chairperson, to do is to talk about an action plan. What do we do from here going forward? I'm so then pleased because I met the Chairperson about 2 weeks ago. Not the Chairperson, the SG. I met the Chairperson today, and we'll finalize an MOU that we should move on. So, Chairperson, can you kindly give them a round of applause? Now, how did we basically start working on this? Being a manufacturer, what we did, we went to the Department of Human Settlements as one of the people that we're working with. And then went to the ministry to say, okay, this is what needs to be done for our youth. And then they took us to the guy who was actually speaking, Mr. Nobatana. Mr. Nobatana then introduced me to the secretary, and all everything was done in a split second. So what we are then saying is that, which the president always say, unless we increase the industrial capacity of this country, will never create the amount of jobs that we want to create. So what we're then doing, we're then saying as manufacturers, how do we then do that? You only do that through decentralization. Because the way the economy of South Africa is structured and the way the factories, our fathers used to come from Olibompo, Eastern Cape, come to Joburg to work because we've got big firms in Gauteng. But for us to survive and for the youth to survive, we need to start basically decentralizing. So that's what we're basically here to do. We are then saying with the secretary and the chairperson, for instance, if we take just one aspect of the green space, which is geyser manufacturing and lights, right? You've got only 5 entities, that is big manufacturers of geysers. I'm sure I can mention them by name. Some of them are Qata, some of them it's Heattech and them. Qata was bought by Electrolux, which is a Swedish company, for 2 billion only 3 months ago, 4 months ago, right? And that's a company that is premised in Germiston. The throughput or the total production of that company, they've got distribution networks, right? But now what we're saying in this new age that we need to decentralize that because there is customers all over the show. There are people who must be serviced right in the rural areas. We must manufacture those geysers there. This is what we're going to do with the chairperson. My financial lady there, I replaced a white lady who was my financial lady. And she's done better. Can you stand up and then they see you? I'll smash you. She's the one who came up with a model that says, just in the geyser manufacturing space, normally we want a 7,000 production per month. But if you take that 7,000 production per month, and then you actually break it down, which is what she's done for me. Let's do 1,000 geysers, and then grow this incrementally. You'll be surprised the return on investment. It outweighs your 7,000 or 15,000 production per month. Because the orientation is that let's be big, let's be massive, and yet the returns are basically better when you are leaner, you know. So that is what we're bringing then to the party. We want to start with small, medium, and large enterprises. We need to strike a balance. There is a need for large-scale enterprise. We're not saying we must do away with them. But where there is money, where there is growth, where there is scope, it's small to medium. And where there is more profitability. And the advantage of being small is that you can grow incrementally so that at least you know that now I know the craft, and then you grow to a large-scale manufacturer. Now, in the space of ABT, that is our main focus, and this green, we call it green RDP or smart house in terms of RDP. But we start from RDP up to your shopping centers, big structures. ABT, if you go to Europe and overseas, they are not using brick and mortar anymore. They are into ABT. Why is that so? Because they've colonized us, they know their sins, so they need structures where they'll say, if you bomb it today, I'll still survive. So in terms of the strength of the thing, which they call it MPA and things like that, they are better than the normal brick and mortar. The weight, the turnaround, because if you want to build a house and you use brick and mortar, you must do 5 layers. After 5 layers, you stop, that thing must consolidate, and then you build. But they do it from A to Z, you see. So that's what we're bringing. And then the thermal efficiencies of these things is that when it's winter, it is warm. When it's summer, it repels heat. So those are the advantages, you know. And it saves us a lot of money, because if you were to look at what's happening in South Africa in terms of what we have, we use fossil fuels to actually generate heat. But it's not just accidents that happen through these things, but what you inhale, you know, it causes a lot of problems in terms of health issues. So that's what we're doing. But now in terms of the action plan, then, Chairperson, what do we need? It's a good thing that Mr. Nobatana was here, that we went to him. We said, we are not going to start this thing. For instance, if we talk RDP houses, who are the people that are going to assist us? We start businesses, the first thing that we worry about, what about money? Where are we going to get money for business? No, it's not money, it's the market. It's the off-taker who's going to actually take you to where you want to be. Then the rest is history if you've got an off-taker. That's why then we went to the ministry, and then we hooked up with you to say, let's focus on the youth development issue. So at least now we are actually advanced in terms of us getting where we want to be in terms of offtake. But that offtake, it's meant for you. It's not meant for us. Ours is just to give you the IP and say, if you want to go the alternative building route, this is where you go. If you want to go you want to trade in carbon, there's something that people don't understand. We talk about environmentally friendly stuff. But why do we say environmentally friendly? Because it talks to your CO2 emissions. They call it carbon emissions. And that business alone, we need youth there because the trade internationally in terms of CO2 emissions, it's immense. I said that in our meeting with the round table with Minister Jeff Qata about 3 weeks ago. That business alone, because the minister, former Minister of Finance, Malusi Gigaba, he said on the 19th of January this year, the carbon tax is coming to play. Now, when you say carbon tax is coming to play, you are saying a plane that flies from OR Tambo to Cape Town, it's emitting. There are emissions there. So you tax them for emissions. And then if you are a company, a small company, that is reducing those emissions by actually producing products that are environmentally friendly. You quantify that and say, my product has reduced emissions by so many tons. You measure that in tonnages. And then if it has reduced by so many tons, then you go to the emitter and say, you are emitting, so you get that carbon tax money. They use you to offset that. It's a multi-billion rand industry. So we need now to wake up and say, where is us here in terms of participating in these things? Now we go to the private sector because not only government that's going to do these things for us. We then said, as this entity, because we formed an association now, which is one that will be partnering with you, which is youth focused. It's going to be youth that are going to drive the association because we are premised on one thing. We want what we call exit strategies. We want placement. We want enterprises in the manufacturing space of these things. So that's what then we'll be doing with the BBCBE to make sure that you guys are available. We don't want to wake up tomorrow and say these guys are doing nothing for you. We want that list so that when we go to Temba and them in the private sector, in the private sector space, we've partnered as well because we've sold this program. I went to about now currently FD, we've got about 20 manufacturers who are based in Alroad, our manufacturing company. So we've got about 20 manufacturers that have joined us. And then we're saying, if the condition is that from day one up to a maximum of 3 years, your company must be 51% youth owned. That is the condition. And if you look at these manufacturers that we have, they are grey like myself, all of them, and they really want to see this happen. And the critical thing is that, which we don't understand, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're green or blue, if there is a market for your product, you can partner even with a blue person. Am I wrong to say that? If there's a market, these guys will partner with you. Because what we are saying now, whether you decentralize, if you are going to increase they talked about a pie here, right? If this pie is this big, and then you say I own 10% of nothing or 10% of zero, you will remain poor, right? So these are the things that we must begin to understand and say, how do we then deal with that? So we've got these companies that are behind this approach, Secretary. And then we've also looked at the question, that is, I had a meeting with Nature. They are on board. But we said we cannot rely on Nature only. So we started in the private sector to look at companies that can actually basically help us in terms of funding these things. Because now coming to funding, if you've got a product, then the next thing now is to say, how do I fund it? And funding is not just to get money to get this thing going. Is to create a proper financial model, to have a good P&L, they call it the profit and loss thing. So that's what we've done then. We have partnered with a company that is listed in South Africa that when we met, we said our objective is to empower youth. So if you want to play in this space, give us these terms. Because that's why they say it's good to do your research. Because you go there, say, I go to this company, they say, okay, I'm going to find you at Prime +4. because there's risk and these things are. Okay, you accept prime plus 4. But once it's prime plus 4, it means that your cost of funding is high, which therefore talks to your bottom line. Am I correct to say that? Yeah. So those are the things that we must look at. Then when we went to them, and then they say, okay, we want us to pay you monthly or 30 days from date of statement. But the long and the short is that the company that we partnered with, which is ready for this program, chairperson and a listed company, we then say, okay, this is the South African environmental, developmental, blah, 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 blah. We want better terms. We want at least to see if you cannot fund us below prime. Looking into that. And then turn around in terms of payments. We want like 90 days. You know, there are guys like Pick and Pay where you go and buy. They say we'll give you, we will only buy from you if you give us 90 days from date of statement. It's like they're a bank themselves. So you're trying to mitigate all the risks that young people encounter in terms of their enterprises. So that is now basically where we are. Then having formed this with them, I said to youth, the guy that won the drone here is one of our youth guys, the secretary. So it means that at least we're doing something good. So that is basically where we are. The only thing that I can basically leave with you is two things, young people of today, is that there's a saying that says, the future, right, will be the fast eating the slow. So if we think about these things and not implement immediately, then we're in trouble. And the second one is that the saying that says, if you want to run fast, you run alone. But if you want to run far, you run together. Thank you.